Oh, what a magnificent day it was for the Zephyrian Empire. Commander Vex Talon stood on the gleaming observation deck of his flagship, the Dominator Prime, watching the celebration unfold across the galaxy's most civilized sectors. The war against humanity was over, and by the cosmic void, hadn't it been just so easy? Sir. Lieutenant Brix Corin approached with that bounce in his step that only came from crushing an inferior species. The victory statistics are in from high command. Vex turned, his four eyes gleaming with satisfaction, his scaled hide practically shimmering with pride. Well, Lieutenant, tell me how thoroughly we have demonstrated Zephyrian superiority. Humanity's resistance collapsed in just 18 standard cycles, sir. Their fleet destroyed, their colonies occupied, and their leaders captured or eliminated. A complete and total victory. Brix's voice carried that delicious note of triumph that made Vex's heart sing. 18 cycles, Vex mused, clicking his claws against the viewport. I honestly thought those primitive mammals might last at least 20. Shows what happens when you overestimate the opposition, doesn't it, Lieutenant? Indeed, sir. The humans proved to be exactly what our tactical computers predicted: predictable, emotional, and utterly outmatched by superior Zephyrian intellect and technology. Vex chuckled, a sound like grinding metal that his species found particularly amusing. Tell me, Brix, what was the final casualty ratio? For every Zephyrian soldier lost, sir, we eliminated approximately 200 humans. Their primitive tactics were no match for our advanced warfare protocols, 200 to 1. Vex spread his arms wide, as if embracing the entire universe. Truly, the galaxy is safer now that these chaotic creatures have been properly managed. The celebration around them was spectacular, even by Zephyrian standards. Holographic displays showed the conquered human worlds, now flying the crisp, efficient banners of the Empire. Officers from 12 different species mingled in the Grand Hall, all raising their various appendages in toast to the swift, decisive victory. General Thix Veron, commander of the Third Fleet, approached their group with what passed for a smile on his reptilian features. Vex, my congratulations on your sector's performance. The humans in the Sol system folded faster than a collapsing star. Thank you, General, Vex replied with mock humility. Though I must say it hardly required strategic brilliance. Point our ships at their pathetic vessels, fire superior weapons, collect the debris. Even a first-cycle cadet could have managed it. Aye, indeed. Their so-called human ingenuity proved to be nothing more than desperate flailing. Vex's laugh boomed across the celebration. Did you hear about their final stand at the Luna base? They actually tried to ram our dreadnoughts with cargo ships. Cargo ships. Brix exclaimed. Primitive mammals to the very end. Vex nodded sagely. That's exactly what I mean. No tactical sophistication, no understanding of proper warfare. Just emotional outbursts and suicide charges. Really, it's almost sad how outclassed they were. The party continued around them, with holographic displays cycling through images of conquered human cities, captured human leaders, and the ceremonial raising of Zephyrian flags over Earth's major continents. The sight filled every alien heart with the warm glow of a job well done. Sir, another aide approached, this one from the Intelligence Division. Final reports confirm 0 remaining human military assets anywhere in known space. Their resistance networks have been completely dismantled. All human worlds are now under proper Imperial administration. 0 remaining assets, Vex repeated with satisfaction. Music to my auditory receptors. And their population? Safely relocated to designated zones where they can be productively managed, sir. No more chaotic human expansion, no more unpredictable human behavior disrupting galactic order. The universe is finally running as efficiently as it should. Excellent work, everyone. Vex raised his ceremonial goblet filled with the finest Andromedan wine. Let this victory serve as a reminder to all species. The Zephyrian Empire brings order, stability, and proper management to the galaxy. No more human chaos, no more human unpredictability, no more human, well, humans. The assembled officers burst into applause, their various forms of laughter creating a symphony of triumph that echoed through the ship's corridors. "Tell me, General," Vex asked as the noise died down, "what's our next objective? Surely there must be other disorderly species that require our guidance?" Vex consulted his tactical display. "Actually, sir, the galaxy appears to be remarkably peaceful now. It seems the human defeat has convinced other potential troublemakers to fall in line voluntarily." "Perfect," Vex beamed. "Nothing like a decisive victory to establish proper galactic order. But I do believe we can finally focus on more civilized pursuits, expanding trade routes, optimizing resource distribution, perhaps even some cultural development." "Indeed, sir. No more worrying about human unpredictability disrupting our carefully planned operations." As the celebration continued into the ship's night cycle, every Zephyrian present felt that warm glow of a universe finally running according to plan. The chaotic, unpredictable element known as humanity had been efficiently removed from the galactic equation. What could possibly go wrong? 3 standard cycles after the glorious victory celebration, Lieutenant Crix Molden found himself assigned to the most thrilling duty imaginable in cataloging abandoned human facilities on Earth. Oh, what an honor. What a privilege. Surely this was exactly why he'd joined the Zephyrian Imperial Forces, to count empty buildings and file reports about primitive human infrastructure. Facility 77 Alpha, Crix muttered into his recording device, his mandibles clicking with annoyance. Former human military installation. Status: abandoned. Contents: dust, debris, and the lingering smell of whatever those mammals called coffee. The underground complex stretched before him like a metallic tomb, emergency lighting casting eerie shadows across walls covered in that peculiar human script. His scanner indicated the facility was completely powered down, life support offline, security systems dormant. Just another dead monument to human overconfidence. "Sir," his aide, Corporal EX Dannon, called from deeper in the complex. "You might want to see this." Crix's antennae twitched with irritation. "Let me guess, Corporal. More human propaganda posters. Another cache of their primitive projectile weapons? Perhaps some motivational slogans about never giving up?" "Not exactly, sir. It's a bit more complicated than that." Following the sound of Yex's voice, Crix descended through several levels of the facility until he reached what appeared to be a medical section. The air here felt different, colder somehow, and his sensors detected trace amounts of cryogenic compounds. "Over here, sir." Yex stood before a massive blast door marked with bright yellow warning symbols and text in multiple human languages. The door was sealed behind a false wall. Took me 3 scans to detect it. Cryogenic storage? Crix read the human symbols with growing interest. Well, what were these clever little mammals hiding down here? The blast door, predictably, required no sophisticated Zephyrian technology to open. A simple override from Crix's universal access tool, and the massive portal slid aside with a satisfying hiss. Cold air rushed out, carrying the sharp scent of preservation chemicals. By the cosmic void, Crix breathed as his helmet lights illuminated the chamber beyond. Rows upon rows of cryogenic pods lined the walls, each one marked with identification numbers and status displays. Most showed red indicators, their occupants long since expired from power failures or system malfunctions. But there, in the back corner, a single pod pulsed with steady green lights. "Sir," Yex whispered, "that one's still active." "So it is, Corporal, so it is." Crix approached the functioning pod with the cautious fascination of a scientist examining a particularly dangerous specimen. Let's see what specimen the humans thought was worth preserving. The identification plate read, Morrison Jake. Rank, Staff Sergeant. Status, deep cryogenic suspension. Mission classification, Operation Last Stand. Operation Last Stand, Crix chuckled. How wonderfully dramatic. These humans and their grandiose naming conventions. Should we report this to High Command, sir? Report what, exactly? That we found one frozen human in a basement? I think Commander Vex has more important matters to attend to than cataloging leftover specimens. Crix studied the pod's control panel with growing amusement. Besides, this could be educational. When was the last time anyone had the opportunity to observe a genuine human awakening process? Sir, are you suggesting we wake him up? Why not? Consider it a scientific opportunity, Corporal. Here we have what is quite possibly the last remaining human warrior in the entire galaxy, preserved like some ancient artifact. Surely the Intelligence Division would appreciate a live specimen for study. Yex's concern was audible through his helmet comm. But, sir, protocol requires. Protocol, Corporal, was written for normal circumstances. Finding the galaxy's last human hardly qualifies as normal. Wouldn't you agree? Crix's claws danced over the alien control interface. Fortunately, human technology was so primitive that even their security systems yielded to basic Zephyrian code-breaking algorithms. Within moments, the pod's revival sequence activated. Beginning automated awakening process, the pod announced in that flat, mechanical tone that humans seem to love. Estimated time to consciousness, 15 standard minutes. 15 minutes, Crix mused. Just enough time to set up proper recording equipment. This will make an excellent addition to my efficiency reports. As the pod began its warming cycle, neither Zephyrian considered that perhaps there were very good reasons why this particular human had been hidden away in the deepest but most secure level of a military facility. After all, what possible threat could one thawed-out mammal represent to the mighty Zephyrian Empire? The pod's occupant stirred slightly, frost melting from his hair as his body temperature slowly returned to normal. Soon, the galaxy's most efficiently managed species would meet the last of its most recently conquered ones. What an absolutely delightful scientific opportunity this was going to be. Staff Sergeant Jake Morrison's eyes opened to the sight of two very large, very scaly, very non-human faces staring down at him with what he could only describe as scientific curiosity. The kind of look researchers might give a particularly interesting lab rat. Fascinating. Lieutenant Crix was saying, his recording device capturing every moment. Note how the subject's pupils dilate upon awakening. Truly primitive neural responses. Jake's military training kicked in faster than his cryo-addled brain could process the situation. One moment he was lying in the pod like a good little specimen, but the next moment Lieutenant Crix found himself missing his recording device and nursing what would become a spectacular bruise across his snout. Impossible. Corporal Yex exclaimed as Jake rolled out of the pod with fluid grace. The subject was completely immobilized. The subject, Jake growled in a voice rough from 3 years of cryogenic sleep, has a name. And the subject is wondering why his planet seems to be occupied by oversized lizards with fancy uniforms. Crix scrambled for his sidearm, but Jake had already assessed the situation with typical human efficiency. 2 aliens, unfamiliar weapons, unknown capabilities, but definitely hostile intent. Time for Plan A. When in doubt, improvise violently. Sir. Yex shouted as Jake grabbed a medical scanner and hurled it with remarkable accuracy at the chamber's main power coupling. The primitive is destroying equipment. The lights went out. Emergency illumination kicked in, bathing everything in ominous red. And in that moment of confusion, Jake Morrison did what humans do best, he adapted. By the time Crix's enhanced vision adjusted to the lighting change, their specimen had vanished. Where did he go? Crix demanded, his weapon sweeping the empty chamber. I don't know, sir. He was right there. He's one disoriented human. How difficult can it be to track one disoriented human? 20 minutes later, as facility alarms shrieked and emergency teams swarmed the installation, Crix was beginning to suspect that tracking one human might be more challenging than anticipated. Report. Commander Vex Talon's voice crackled through the communication array, carrying that particular tone that suggested someone's career might be ending very shortly. Sir. Crix began carefully. We have encountered a minor complication during the facility survey. Define complication, Lieutenant. We discovered a functional cryogenic pod containing a preserved human specimen. During the revival process for scientific observation, the subject became uncooperative. There was a pause that stretched across the communication channel like the silence before a supernova. Lieutenant Crix, Vex's voice was dangerously calm. "Are you telling me that you awakened a human and then lost him?" "The situation is under control, sir. We have 40 troops surrounding the facility. He's trapped underground with no possible escape routes. 40 troops for one confused human. Standard containment protocol, sir." As if summoned by their conversation, explosions echoed through the facility's upper levels. Vex's communication link filled with frantic reports from the surface teams. "Sir, the human has somehow reached the motor pool. He's stolen a hover transport. How did he get past perimeter security? Sir, he's not heading away from the facility. He's circling back." Vex's 4 eyes narrowed as he listened to the chaos unfolding through his communication system. "Lieutenant, explain to me how one recently awakened human managed to escape a secured facility, evade 40 trained soldiers, steal military equipment, and is now... What exactly is he doing?" "He appears to be conducting reconnaissance, sir." "Reconnaissance? On what? On U.S., sir?" Through the facility's external sensors, they watched Jake's stolen transport weaving between their own vehicles with impossible precision. He wasn't fleeing, wasn't panicking, wasn't doing any of the predictable things their tactical computers had modeled for confused, isolated humans. Instead, he was learning. "Sir." Another voice joined the communication chaos. "The subject has disabled 3 of our perimeter vehicles. He's using some kind of improvised electromagnetic pulse device." "Improvised from what?" Vex demanded. We are not entirely sure, sir. It appears to be constructed from medical equipment and our own power cells." Vex felt that familiar sensation that Zephyrians experienced when the universe stopped making sense. "He built an electromagnetic weapon from medical supplies and your equipment?" "In approximately 12 minutes, sir." 12 minutes. "Yes, sir?" Jake's transport suddenly accelerated, heading directly toward the facility's main entrance at ramming speed. The pursuing vehicles scrambled to intercept, their pilots assuming this was finally the desperate suicide charge their training had prepared them for. At the last possible moment, Jake's transport veered sharply upward, using the facility's exhaust vents as an improvised launch ramp. The pursuing vehicles, committed to their intercept course, crashed spectacularly into the facility's reinforced entrance. Jake's transport disappeared into the forested hills beyond, leaving behind 40 of the Empire's finest soldiers, multiple destroyed vehicles, one very damaged facility, and a growing sense that perhaps the war against humanity had ended a bit prematurely. Lieutenant Crix, Vex's voice had acquired that special quality that suggested explosive decompression was imminent. "But, yes, sir?" "Find him." "Sir, yes, sir." "And Lieutenant?" "Sir?" "No." "Next time you discover a sleeping human, perhaps consider leaving him asleep." The communication link cut off, leaving Crix standing amid the wreckage of what had been a perfectly routine facility inspection, wondering how exactly one confused human had turned 40 professional soldiers into a demolition crew. Above ground, Jake Morrison was getting his first good look at what the galaxy looked like under new management. He was not impressed. 3 days after the minor incident at the cryogenic facility, Commander Vex Talon was beginning to understand why some species developed stress-related molting disorders. His pristine command center had become a chaos coordination hub, with reports flooding in from across the sector about one impossible human. "Sir." Communications Officer Lex Varon burst through the command center doors, clutching a data pad like his life depended on it. "Supply Convoy 77 has gone silent." "Define silent, officer." "Complete communication blackout, sir. Last transmission indicated normal operations, then nothing." X's claws drummed against his command console in that rhythm that his subordinates had learned meant someone was about to have a very bad day. "Send a reconnaissance team to investigate." How many convoys does that make this cycle? 14, sir. 14. Vex repeated the number as if testing its reality. 14 supply convoys have simply vanished? Not vanished, sir, Lieutenant Brix corrected nervously. We found them. All of them. Just not in the condition we expected. Show me. The main display activated, revealing footage from the reconnaissance teams. Convoy after convoy of Imperial supply vehicles sat perfectly intact along various transportation routes. No obvious damage, no signs of battle, no indication of what had gone wrong. Sir, Brix continued, the curious thing is that all the vehicles are still functional. The crews are unharmed. But none of the cargo arrived at its destination. The vehicles are empty, sir. Vex stared at the images with growing disbelief. Empty. All of them? Every single supply crate, sir. Food supplies, ammunition, replacement parts, medical equipment, fuel cells. Everything. Gone. Where did it go? We are not entirely sure, sir. And the command center's tactical display began highlighting incident locations across the sector. What had started as isolated events was clearly forming a pattern, one that stretched across multiple supply routes and seemed to target the most critical resources. Sir, another officer approached hesitantly. We have received a transmission from the missing convoy crews. Finally. Put it through. The main screen flickered, revealing Sergeant Neck's collar of the 4th Transport Division. His usually immaculate uniform looked disheveled, and his expression suggested someone who had just witnessed something that challenged his fundamental understanding of reality. Command, this is Sergeant Collar reporting from Supply Route Delta 9. Sergeant. What happened to your cargo? Sir, that's difficult to explain. We stopped for a routine inspection when this human appeared. Appeared? From where? We are still trying to figure that out, sir. One moment the route was clear, the next moment he was standing in the middle of the road, waving at us like he was directing traffic. Vex felt his blood pressure rising. And? Well, sir, he seemed friendly enough. Started asking questions about our cargo manifest, our destination, our operational procedures. Very polite, very professional, almost conversational. Sergeant, are you telling me that you provided classified operational information to an enemy combatant because he was polite? He knew things, sir. Details about our supply chain that only High Command should know. We assumed he was some kind of Imperial inspector. Imperial inspectors don't look like humans, Sergeant. Yes, sir, but he had proper identification, clearance codes, even knew the names of our commanding officers. Impossible. He also had these recordings, sir. Messages from human military personnel. It said they were educational materials about proper prisoner handling protocols. Vex's 4 eyes focused with laser intensity. Recordings? The screen split, showing additional footage that the human had apparently left with each convoy. A woman in human military uniform appeared on screen, her bearing suggesting someone accustomed to command authority. This is Captain Zara Voss, Terran Defense Corps. The recording began. If you are watching this, it means someone has accessed our emergency protocols database. Pause. Vex commanded, "Who is this human?" According to our intelligence files, Sir, Brix consulted his datapad. Captain Zara Voss was Jake Morrison's commanding officer. Declared killed in action during the final assault on Luna Base. Continue playback. The recording resumed. The soldier you have encountered is Staff Sergeant Jake Morrison, and I need you to understand something very important about him. Jake doesn't follow conventional military doctrine because conventional military doctrine never worked for us. Captain Voss leaned forward, her expression serious. He's going to do things that don't make sense according to your tactical computers. He's going to be polite when you expect aggression, helpful when you expect hostility, and absolutely relentless when you think you have contained him. The cargo your crews willingly provided, the recording continued, is now being distributed to human survivors throughout this sector. Jake isn't stealing your supplies, gentlemen. He's redistributing them according to humanitarian protocols. Vex's mandibles clicked in rapid succession, a sure sign of mounting fury. Humanitarian protocols? Furthermore, Captain Voss smiled slightly, Jake has probably already identified your next 3 supply routes, your backup facilities, and your emergency contingency plans. He's not just one soldier, commanders. He's a force multiplier. The recording ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Sir, Communications Officer Lex spoke up quietly. We are receiving reports of similar incidents throughout the sector. This Morrison appears to be systematically disrupting our entire supply network. One human, Vex muttered, is paralyzing an entire sector's logistics. Sir, Lieutenant Brix added nervously, intelligence reports that human survivor groups are becoming active in areas where supplies have been redistributed. Active how? They are organizing, sir, establishing communication networks, setting up resistance cells. It appears that Morrison's supply distributions are serving as rallying points for human survivor communities. Vex stared at the tactical display, watching red warning indicators multiply across his sector map. In 3 days, one awakened human had transformed a pacified, occupied zone into an active resistance network. Get me Admiral Korth, Vex commanded. It appears we have a problem that requires more than standard containment protocols. Sir, Brix asked quietly. What classification should I assign to this Morrison situation? Vex looked at the growing chaos on his displays, then at the recorded image of Captain Zara Voss still frozen on screen, her confident smile suggesting she had anticipated exactly this scenario. Classification. Vex sighed. How about total nightmare? Admiral Korth arrived at Vex Talon's command vessel with the kind of supreme confidence that only came from commanding 3 full battle fleets and having never encountered a problem that couldn't be solved with overwhelming firepower. His arrival was announced by the thunderous roar of escort fighters and the impressive sight of the dreadnought Absolute Authority sliding into formation alongside the Dominator Prime, Commander Talon. Admiral Korth's voice boomed through the communication array even before his shuttle had finished docking. I understand you are having difficulties with some leftover human debris. Vex's greeting was notably less enthusiastic. Admiral, the situation has evolved beyond initial parameters. Evolved? It's one confused mammal, Vex. I have brought the 7th, 9th, and 12th battle groups. Surely that's sufficient to handle one disoriented primitive. Sir, with respect, this particular human appears to be somewhat less disoriented than our tactical projections suggested. Admiral Korth's laugh echoed through the command center as he reviewed the situation reports. Let me understand this correctly. One recently awakened human has disrupted 14 supply convoys, established contact with survivor populations, and somehow managed to evade 40 trained soldiers? That's accurate, sir. Vex, my friend, you are overthinking this. Humans are predictable. They follow patterns. They respond to superior force with either submission or desperate suicide charges. It's basic Xenop psychology. Sir, perhaps you should review the tactical analyses. Nonsense. Watch and learn how proper military doctrine handles insurgent problems. Admiral Korth's confidence was infectious. Within hours, his command staff had deployed a textbook counterinsurgency operation across the entire sector. 3 battle groups coordinated through advanced tactical computers, sensor networks covering every possible hiding spot, and patrol schedules calculated to provide complete area denial. There. Admiral Korth pointed at the tactical display with satisfaction. Perfect coverage. Mathematical precision. That human won't be able to move 3 meters without triggering multiple sensor arrays. The plan was, by any reasonable standard, absolutely foolproof. Which was why nobody could explain how Jake Morrison managed to appear inside the heavily guarded Central Command outpost on Kepler 7, apparently having bypassed 17 security checkpoints, 4 scanner arrays, and 2 automated defense systems. Sir. The frantic transmission from Colonel Dex Valkron crackled through the communications system. The human is here. Inside the facility. Impossible. Admiral Korth snapped. Our sensors show no unauthorized access. Sir, he's in the mess hall. He's serving food to our troops. He's what? What? Serving food, sir. He says he's conducting a morale inspection. Half the base personnel think he's a new civilian contractor. Admiral Korth's expression could have melted Durasteel. Arrest him immediately. We tried, sir. But he's asking detailed questions about our operational procedures. Our soldiers keep answering him because his questions sound like official efficiency reviews. I don't care what his questions sound like. He's the enemy. He's the enemy. Sir, that's the thing. He doesn't seem very enemy-like. He complimented Sergeant Rax on his equipment maintenance, helped Private Yole fix a malfunctioning comm unit, and gave Lieutenant Vex some excellent suggestions for improving patrol route efficiency. Through the command center speakers, they could hear Jake's voice in the background of Colonel Valkron's transmission. You know, Colonel, your supply chain inefficiencies are really impacting troop morale. Have you considered implementing a rotational distribution system? You see? Colonel Valkron whispered. He knows more about our operations than most of our own officers. Admiral Korth's battle plan, so elegant in its mathematical precision, began developing what military strategists call complications. Jake's presence at the Central Command outpost should have been impossible according to their sensor networks. His detailed knowledge of Imperial procedures should have been impossible according to their intelligence assessments. His ability to blend seamlessly into their operational structure should have been impossible according to every Xenop psychological profile ever written about human behavior. Sir. Another transmission interrupted the Admiral's increasingly frantic recalculations. This is Major QX Bronson from Patrol Group Alpha. We have encountered multiple human survivor groups moving through Sector 7. Engaging hostile forces? Admiral Korth asked hopefully. No, sir. They are asking for directions. Directions to what? To our supply depot, sir. They say Morrison sent them to collect humanitarian aid distributions. They have proper requisition forms. Proper requisition forms? The official Imperial documentation, sir. Correct formats, proper authorization codes, even stamped with appropriate security seals. Vex watched Admiral Korth's confident expression slowly transform into something resembling existential confusion. Admiral, perhaps we should consider alternative approaches. Alternative approaches? It's one human, Vex. One. Single. Human. Sir, Lieutenant Brix approached with yet another report. Intelligence Division has identified 17 separate human resistance cells that have become active in the past 2 days. They are all using Morrison's supply distributions as coordination points. Even, sir, Communications Officer Lex added, we are receiving reports from other sectors. Apparently, word about Morrison's activities is spreading. Human survivors in the Centauri system are beginning to organize. Same with the Vega colonies. Admiral Korth stared at the tactical display as red warning indicators multiplied across multiple star systems. His 3 battle groups, perfectly positioned for conventional counterinsurgency operations, suddenly seemed inadequate for dealing with an enemy who insisted on being helpful, but light and completely unpredictable. Sir, Vex said quietly, High Command is requesting status updates on the Morrison situation. Status updates? Admiral Korth's voice cracked slightly. What exactly am I supposed to tell them? That one thawed-out human has turned 3 battle groups into a recruitment service for the Resistance? Sir, another officer approached nervously. We are receiving a transmission from Jake Morrison himself. Put it through. Jake's voice filled the command center, clear and disturbingly cheerful. Hello there, this is Staff Sergeant Morrison. I wanted to thank you for the excellent cooperation your troops have provided. The humanitarian aid distribution is going fantastic. Admiral Korth's career flashed before his 4 eyes as Jake continued. Also, you might want to check your patrol schedules. I have made some efficiency improvements that should help with morale and operational effectiveness. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Admiral, Vex said carefully, I believe the situation may require escalation. Admiral Korth looked at his perfectly planned, mathematically precise operation falling apart around him and realized he was about to become a very expensive object lesson in human unpredictability. Get me high command, he muttered, and someone find me a new career plan. High Admiral Zek Thorn, Supreme Commander of the Zephyrian Imperial Forces, had not achieved his exalted position by panicking over minor operational setbacks. In his 43 cycles of military service, he had conquered 17 star systems, suppressed 42 rebellions, and established the Empire as the galaxy's premier stabilizing force. He was, by any reasonable measure, unflappable. So when his emergency communication array began chiming with incoming priority alerts from every major sector in the galaxy, his first response was mild irritation rather than concern. Communications. What's all this racket about, sir? Commander Yex Kralik rushed to the communication console, his face bearing that particular expression that suggested the universe had just stopped following logical principles. We are receiving emergency reports from everywhere, sir? Define everywhere, Commander. 17 sectors, sir. Human resistance activities reported in the Centauri system, Vega colonies, Proxima installations, the Arcturus stations, and the entire Orion arm. High Admiral Thorn's confidence remained steady. After all, scattered human survivors attempting futile resistance was hardly unprecedented. Standard containment protocols should handle isolated survivor groups, Commander. Why are these reports reaching my level? Sir, they are not isolated anymore. The main tactical display activated, showing a galaxy-wide overview of Imperial holdings. What should have been a peaceful expanse of green secured indicators was instead erupting with yellow unrest and red active resistance markers across multiple star systems. Impossible, Thorn muttered, his confidence beginning to develop hairline cracks. We eliminated human military capacity completely. Sir, another aide approached with a data pad. Intelligence Division reports that human survivor groups are coordinating across interstellar distances. They are using our own communication networks to organize. Our communication networks? They appear to have acquired Imperial access codes, sir. Proper encryption keys, correct authentication protocols, even administrative privileges for supply requisitions. Thorn's mandibles clicked in that rapid sequence that indicated mounting confusion. How did scattered human survivors acquire Imperial access codes? We believe they are getting them from this Morrison individual, sir. The one human causing problems in Vex Talon's sector? The same, sir. But his activities appear to be inspiring, broader movements. The tactical display zoomed in on the Centauri system, where human resistance cells had apparently coordinated simultaneous strikes against 3 separate Imperial supply convoys. The strikes followed the same pattern established by Morrison: polite interaction, efficient cargo redistribution, and educational materials about human tactical doctrine. Sir. Communications Officer Dex Marvin called from across the command center. Priority transmission from the Vega system. Governor Lex Barton reports that human survivor groups have somehow gained administrative access to colonial management databases. Administrative access? They are filing formal complaints about working conditions, sir. Proper Imperial bureaucratic procedures. They are demanding policy reviews, workplace safety inspections, and improved meal allocations. Thorn stared at the officer as if he had just claimed that mathematics had stopped working. They are filing complaints? Official grievances, sir. Following correct Imperial administrative protocols. Governor Barton's office is legally required to respond to each complaint within standard processing timeframes. This is insane. Sir, yet another aide appeared, carrying reports that seemed to multiply by the minute. We are receiving similar reports from non-human species throughout the galaxy. Non-human species? The Altarian mining colonies have begun organizing labor disputes. The Regellian agricultural workers are demanding improved harvesting schedules. Even the Andromedan trade guilds are questioning Imperial taxation policies. Thorn felt his legendary composure beginning to crack under the weight of impossible reports. Are you telling me that human resistance activities are inspiring other species to challenge imperial authority? It appears that Morrison's polite, bureaucratic approach is being copied by resistance movements across multiple species, sir. The tactical display continued updating, showing the spread of unrest like a viral infection jumping between star systems. What had started as one awakened human in one sector was becoming a galaxy-wide phenomenon of organized, polite, highly effective resistance. Sir. Commander Kralich's voice carried the particular tone of someone delivering news that might result in their immediate execution. Emergency transmission from Admiral Korth. Admiral Korth's image appeared on the main screen, and his appearance suggested someone who had recently discovered that all his fundamental assumptions about reality were incorrect. His usually immaculate uniform was disheveled, his confident bearing replaced by the hollow stare of military professional watching his career implode. "Hi, Admiral," Korth began, his voice carrying the weight of total defeat. "I need to report that the Morrison situation has exceeded all containment parameters." "Explain." "Sir, he's recruited my own officers." "He's what?" "Morrison has somehow convinced 17 members of my command staff that they are participating in an Imperial Efficiency Evaluation program. They are providing him with classified operational data because they think he's conducting authorized performance reviews." Thorn's world tilted slightly off its axis. "Admiral, are you telling me that your own officers are working for the human?" "Not for him, sir. With him. They genuinely believe they are helping to improve Imperial operational effectiveness. Morrison has convinced them that resistance coordination is actually an advanced training exercise designed to test Imperial readiness." "How is that possible?" "He knows everything, sir. Supply schedules, personnel rotations, tactical protocols, even personal details about individual officers. He speaks to each person in exactly the terms they need to hear." The communication link filled with background noise as Korth's own officers could be heard discussing logistics with Morrison in the tone of enthusiastic colleagues working on a mutual project. "Sir," Commander Kralich added quietly, "intelligence reports that Morrison somehow gained access to the Imperial personnel database 3 days ago. He's been studying detailed profiles of every officer in Admiral Korth's command." 3 days ago? Thorn's voice rose to levels that threatened to crack his vocal cords. 3 days ago he was trapped in an underground facility. "Yes, sir." Thorn stared at the galaxy-wide tactical display, watching centuries of careful Imperial expansion beginning to unravel because one human had decided to be helpful, polite, and impossibly competent at manipulating bureaucratic systems. "Sir," another aide approached with trembling appendages, "Emergency Council is demanding immediate status reports on galactic stability." "Status reports?" Thorn laughed, a sound like grinding metal plates. "What am I supposed to tell them? That our total victory over humanity lasted exactly 3 cycles before one thawed soldier turned the entire galaxy into a training exercise." "But, sir?" "War." Thorn looked at his command staff, then at the spreading chaos on his displays, then at Admiral Korth's defeated expression still frozen on the main screen. "Get me Emergency Council," he commanded. "And someone start drafting my resignation letter." "Sir, what should I tell them about the situation?" "Tell them," Thorn sighed, "that reports of humanity's defeat may have been greatly exaggerated." Commander Vex Talon was beginning to suspect that his military academy training had somehow failed to prepare him for dealing with species that refused to follow basic logical principles. Standing in the secure command center of the Dominator Prime, surrounded by the most advanced military technology the Zephyrian Empire could provide, he should have felt completely safe from one wayward human. "Should have" being the operative phrase. "Sir." Lieutenant Brix burst through the command center doors with the frantic energy of someone who had just witnessed the laws of physics filing a formal complaint. "Morrison is here." "Define here, Lieutenant." "On the ship, sir." "Inside the ship. He's in Engineering Section C, asking Technician Yoke about optimal power distribution configurations." Vex's 4 eyes focused with laser precision. "How did he get on the ship?" We are not entirely sure, sir." He appeared in the cargo bay during routine supply transfer operations. The loading crews assumed he was a new efficiency consultant. An efficiency consultant? He had proper identification, sir. Imperial credentials, clearance codes, even a schedule of systems he was supposed to inspect. Through the command center's internal communication system, they could hear Jake's voice echoing from the engineering sections. Your antimatter containment protocols are really impressive. But have you considered implementing redundant safety overrides for the primary power couplings? Vex felt that familiar sensation that suggested his sanity was preparing to file for emergency leave. He's critiquing our antimatter containment systems. Sir, Communications Officer Lex added nervously. Chief Engineer Mox reports that Morrison's suggestions are actually quite sound from a technical perspective. Of course they are, Vex muttered. Security teams to engineering. Immediate containment. Sir, Brix hesitated. The security teams are listening to his presentation on structural integrity improvements. Is what? He's giving a lecture, sir. Complete with holographic displays and mathematical calculations. Half the engineering staff thinks it's the most informative technical briefing they have ever attended. Vex's claws drummed against his command console in rapid staccato patterns that his crew had learned meant someone was about to become space debris. Put me through to engineering. The main screen activated, revealing Jake Morrison standing in the middle of the Dominator Prime's most secure engineering section, surrounded by fascinated Zephyrian technicians. He was gesturing enthusiastically at a holographic display showing power flow diagrams while chief engineers took detailed notes. Ah, Commander Talon. Jake waved cheerfully at the camera. Excellent timing. I was just explaining to your staff how you could improve engine efficiency by approximately 37% with some minor configuration adjustments. Morrison. Vex's voice carried the particular tone that suggested imminent explosive decompression. You are under arrest for unauthorized access to Imperial military assets. Under arrest? Jake looked genuinely puzzled. But I have proper authorization. Chief Engineer Mox verified my credentials personally. You are a human enemy combatant. I'm a technical consultant conducting authorized efficiency evaluations. Jake held up an official-looking datapad. See? Signed authorization from Admiral Korth himself. Vex stared at the screen in growing disbelief. Admiral Korth didn't authorize anything. Well, someone with Admiral Korth's access codes and command authority did. Jake's smile suggested someone who had just solved a particularly enjoyable puzzle. Speaking of which, your command systems have some fascinating security vulnerabilities that really should be addressed. Security vulnerabilities? Oh yes. For instance, did you know that your main tactical computer accepts administrative commands from any terminal with proper engineering clearance? Very convenient for maintenance operations, but it does create some interesting tactical opportunities. Vex felt his blood pressure approaching levels that threatened internal combustion. What are you talking about? Well, for example, Jake's fingers danced across an engineering control panel with disturbing familiarity. Your ship's internal communication system can be reconfigured to broadcast on open Imperial frequencies. Suddenly, every communication channel throughout the sector crackled to life with Jake's voice. Attention, all Imperial forces. This is Staff Sergeant Morrison conducting a galaxy-wide tactical exercise. Please stand by for updated operational parameters. Stop him, Vex shouted to his security teams. Sir, came the reply from Security Chief Rex Dalton. He's locked down engineering with proper security protocols. We can't override the lockdown without command authorization. I am command authorization. Sir, the computer says your authorization has been temporarily suspended pending completion of the efficiency evaluation. Jake's voice continued broadcasting across Imperial channels, but all Imperial forces are hereby directed to implement humanitarian aid distribution protocols as outlined in Section 47 of the Imperial Military Code. There is no Section 47. Vex screamed. There is now. Jake replied cheerfully. I added it during my administrative access session. Very thorough documentation system you have here. On screens throughout the command center, They watched Imperial forces across the sector beginning to respond to Jake's official directives. Supply convoys started distributing their cargo to civilian populations. Patrol ships began broadcasting humanitarian announcements. Administrative personnel started processing Jake's newly created bureaucratic requirements. "This is impossible," Vex declared. "Our systems have multiple security layers." "Oh, absolutely." Jake nodded enthusiastically. "Really impressive security architecture. But you see, I spent 3 days studying your operational manuals while redistributing supply convoys. Fascinating reading. Did you know that Imperial regulations require compliance with any properly authenticated administrative directive? Those directives have to come from legitimate authority. And they do. I have been legally appointed as a special administrative consultant under Emergency Protocol 77 Alpha. Emergency Protocol 77 Alpha doesn't exist. It does now. I filed the proper paperwork 3 hours ago using Admiral Korth's administrative access. All very official and properly documented." Vex watched his carefully ordered universe collapse into bureaucratic absurdity as Jake continued manipulating Imperial systems with the casual efficiency of someone who had turned military conquest into an administrative exercise. "Sir," Lieutenant Brix called out desperately, "Morrison has gained access to our navigation systems." "Navigation?" "He's plotting a course for the Imperial capital, sir. Says he wants to deliver his efficiency evaluation report directly to High Command." "Absolutely not. Sir, the ship's computers are accepting his navigational commands as legitimate orders from authorized engineering personnel." Jake's voice echoed through the command center one final time. "Don't worry, Commander Talon. This is going to be the most educational experience any of us have ever had." As the Dominator Prime's engines engaged and the ship began turning toward the Imperial capital, Vex realized that somewhere in the past week, one awakened human had transformed from a minor containment issue into a force of nature that operated entirely outside the boundaries of logical military doctrine. "Sir," Communications Officer Lex asked quietly, "should I inform High Command that we are bringing Morrison directly to them?" Vex looked at his command center, now effectively under the control of a human who insisted on being helpful while systematically dismantling everything they thought they knew about warfare. "Sure," Vex sighed. "Tell them we are delivering their worst nightmare directly to their front door. And it's going to arrive with proper paperwork." The tide, as they say, had turned. The Imperial capital of Nexus Prime had stood unconquered for over 2,000 cycles, its massive orbital defense platforms and fleet anchorages representing the absolute pinnacle of Zephyrian military power. High Admiral Thorn gazed out at the seemingly impregnable fortress of Imperial might and felt, for the first time in his distinguished career, genuinely terrified. "Sir." Communications Director QX Wharton burst into the command chamber, clutching reports that seemed to multiply in his hands. "We are receiving coordinated transmissions from every occupied human world simultaneously." "Coordinated how?" "They are all broadcasting the same message, sir, on every Imperial frequency. Every human resistance cell is speaking with one voice." The main tactical display activated, showing a galaxy-wide overview that made Thorn's worst nightmares seem optimistic. Human resistance activities weren't just spreading anymore, they were synchronized. 17 star systems showing coordinated strikes against Imperial installations, all timed to the precise moment that the Dominator Prime entered Nexus Prime's sensor range. "Impossible," Thorn declared. "Humans lack the organizational capacity for galaxy-wide coordination." "But, sir," Wharton's voice cracked with the strain of delivering impossible news, "they are using our own command and control networks to coordinate their attacks." The communication array erupted with simultaneous reports from across the galaxy. "Centauri system, human forces have taken control of orbital platforms using proper administrative override codes. Vega colonies, resistance cells have filed formal requests to assume administrative control of all colonial management facilities. Proxima Station, human survivors have submitted properly documented grievances demanding immediate policy changes." But Thorn stared at the reports with growing horror. "They are conquering us with paperwork. Sir, Another aide approached, his appendages trembling with barely controlled panic. The humans aren't attacking our military assets. They are taking over our bureaucracy. Our bureaucracy? Every resistance cell is filing legal challenges to imperial authority using our own administrative regulations. They are demanding policy reviews, requesting administrative hearings, and submitting formal complaints about imperial governance procedures. And we have to respond to all of them, Thorne whispered, the full scope of the disaster becoming clear. Imperial regulations require proper administrative response to all officially filed grievances, within standard processing timeframes, sir, which means our entire administrative apparatus is now working for the human resistance, Thorne finished, his career prospects crumbling like ancient ruins. At that moment, the Dominator Prime emerged from hyperspace directly above Nexus Prime's primary docking facility. Commander Vex Talon's voice crackled through the communication system with the tone of someone who had given up trying to understand reality. High Admiral requesting immediate docking clearance for special delivery. Special delivery? I'm bringing you Jake Morrison, sir. Along with complete documentation of his efficiency evaluation findings. Through the command center's viewports, they could see the Dominator Prime approaching the capital station's docking bays with what appeared to be a parade formation of escort vessels. Imperial ships from across the sector had apparently joined the procession, their crews convinced they were participating in some sort of triumphant administrative review. Sir, a technician called from the communication console. We are receiving a transmission from Morrison himself. Put it through. Jake's voice filled the command center, clear and disturbingly cheerful. Hello, High Admiral Thorne. Staff Sergeant Morrison here. I have completed my galaxy-wide efficiency evaluation of Imperial operations, and I have some recommendations that I think you will find very interesting. Morrison, Thorne's voice carried the weight of absolute defeat. You have destroyed everything. Destroyed? Oh no, sir. I have improved everything. Your administrative systems are now running at peak efficiency. Your communication networks are providing excellent coordination capabilities. Your personnel are demonstrating remarkable adaptability to new operational parameters. You have turned our own military against us. Not against you, sir. For you. Everyone's working together now to implement better governance policies throughout the galaxy. The docking bay announcement system echoed through the station. Attention all personnel. Prepare to receive Staff Sergeant Morrison for official presentation of efficiency evaluation findings to High Command. Commander Vex Talon's shuttle docked with a precision that suggested someone who had finally accepted that normal military procedures no longer applied to anything. Moments later, he stood in High Admiral Thorne's command center, his expression carrying the hollow stare of someone who had watched the universe stop making sense. Admiral, Vex reported with mechanical precision, I present Staff Sergeant Jake Morrison, currently serving as Special Administrative Consultant for Imperial Efficiency Optimization. Jake stepped forward, carrying an official-looking briefcase and wearing what appeared to be an improvised Imperial consultant uniform. His bearing suggested someone who had just completed a challenging but satisfying professional assignment. High Admiral? Jake saluted with crisp military precision. I'm pleased to report that my evaluation has identified numerous opportunities for improving Imperial operations throughout the galaxy. Morrison, Thorne said quietly, what do you want? Want? Oh, I don't want anything, sir. I'm just doing my job. Implementing proper humanitarian governance protocols, ensuring efficient resource distribution, and helping Imperial forces operate according to their own stated regulations. Our stated regulations don't include human rights provisions. They do now. I have submitted appropriate amendments through proper Imperial legislative procedures, all very official and completely legal according to your own governmental framework. Thorne stared at Jake Morrison, then at his tactical displays showing a galaxy-wide transformation that had been accomplished through bureaucratic manipulation rather than military conquest. You have won, Thorne said simply. Won? Jake looked genuinely puzzled. Sir, this isn't about winning or losing. This is about making sure everyone follows proper procedures and treats people with basic decency. But the war. Oh, the war's over. Jake smiled brightly. He has been for days. Now we are all working together to make sure the galaxy runs efficiently and fairly for everyone. And somehow, impossibly, that's exactly what was happening. 6 standard cycles after what Imperial historians would eventually record as the Administrative Revolution, former High Admiral Thorne found himself sitting in what had once been his Supreme Command Center, reviewing efficiency reports that actually made sense for the first time in his career. Sir, his aide, Lieutenant Brix Corin, approached with the morning briefings. The weekly productivity reports from all sectors are in. And galaxy-wide efficiency is up 43%, citizen satisfaction ratings have reached all-time highs, and we haven't had a single administrative backlog in over 2 cycles. Thorne accepted the reports with the weary resignation of someone who had learned that everything he thought he knew about governance was completely wrong. Any complaints from the Outer Rim territories? Actually, sir, they are requesting expansion of the new humanitarian protocols to additional sectors. Of course they are, Thorne muttered, reviewing documents that bore the unmistakable stamp of human organizational efficiency. And Morrison? Currently conducting efficiency evaluations in the Andromeda Gateway Station, sir. The administrators there specifically requested his consultation services. They requested him. Enthusiastically, sir. Apparently, word has spread about his administrative innovations. 17 different star systems have submitted formal requests for Morrison's optimization services. Thorne leaned back in his chair, contemplating the cosmic irony of the situation. The Zephyrian Empire, which had spent centuries perfecting the art of military conquest, had been completely restructured by one human who refused to fight and instead filed proper paperwork. Lieutenant, Thorne said thoughtfully, in your professional opinion, what exactly did we learn about humans during this experience? Brix considered the question with the seriousness of someone who had watched their fundamental understanding of reality get reorganized. Well, sir, I believe we learned that humans don't think like other species. Elaborate. When we conquered them, sir, we assumed they would respond like every other species, either submit or fight back with desperate military action. But Morrison didn't do either. No, he didn't. Instead, he treated our occupation like a customer service problem that needed to be solved through proper administrative channels. Thorne nodded slowly. Continue. Humans, it seems, don't just adapt to new situations, sir. They reorganize them. Morrison didn't try to defeat our military. He convinced our military to defeat itself by following its own regulations more efficiently. And now, sir, our military is more effective than it's ever been. Our administrative systems actually work. And every species in the galaxy is voluntarily participating in Imperial governance because they genuinely believe it's in their best interest. Thorne stared out at the bustling activity of Nexus Prime, where human efficiency consultants worked alongside Zephyrian administrators, and former resistance fighters collaborated with Imperial engineers on infrastructure projects. Lieutenant, Thorne said quietly, we spent 2,000 cycles building an empire through conquest and intimidation. Yes, sir. And one human dismantled it completely in less than 10 days. Yes, sir. Then rebuilt it into something that actually works. Also, yes, sir. A soft chime indicated an incoming transmission. Jake Morrison's image appeared on the main screen, his expression carrying that familiar combination of professional competence and inexplicable cheerfulness. Hello, Admiral Thorne. Just checking in from the Andromeda stations. I wanted to let you know that the governance optimization project is proceeding ahead of schedule. Morrison, Thorne replied with something approaching fond exasperation. What exactly are you optimizing out there? Oh, the usual. Resource distribution, administrative efficiency, interspecies communication protocols. You know, making sure everyone's working together effectively. And the local administrators are cooperating? Enthusiastically, sir. Turns out that most government officials actually want to do good work. They just needed better systems to help them succeed. Thorne shook his head in amazement. Morrison, do you realize that you have completely transformed galactic civilization? Have I? I was just trying to make sure everyone followed proper procedures and treated each other decently. Yes, well, apparently proper procedures and basic decency were revolutionary concepts in our governance model. That seems like something that should be fixed. It has been fixed, Morrison. By you. After the transmission ended, Thorne sat in contemplative silence, surrounded by reports showing unprecedented levels of galactic peace, prosperity, and administrative efficiency. Sir, Lieutenant Brix asked quietly, do you think we will ever truly understand humans? Thorne considered the question carefully. Brix, I think the key to understanding humans is accepting that they are fundamentally incomprehensible. They don't conquer through force, they conquer through kindness. They don't defeat enemies, they convert them into colleagues. They don't follow conventional logic. They create new logic that works better than the old logic. So what do we do with that knowledge, sir? Thorne smiled, the first genuine smile he'd managed in cycles. We learn, Lieutenant. We adapt. And we try very, very hard never to underestimate them again. Understood, sir. Oh, and Brix? Sir? Wante. Next time we encounter a sleeping human, we leave them sleeping. Absolutely, sir. And across the galaxy, former Zephyrian subjects continued filing proper paperwork, following efficient procedures, and treating each other with basic decency, but blissfully unaware that they were participating in the most successful revolution in galactic history. All because one human woke up and decided to be helpful.